You've probably heard bold claims, flashy numbers, and so-called secret techniques that promise instant results in the bedroom. But what most people don't realize is that real satisfaction, especially for women, is rarely about just one physical position. It's about something deeper, something more human, and something many men completely overlook. When we talk about why some experiences feel more fulfilling than others, we have to start with understanding the mind, not just the body. Because for the majority of women, emotional safety, trust, and connection are not optional, they are essential. Without them, even the most perfect technique falls flat. But when they're present, even simple moments can become incredibly powerful. Now here's where things get interesting. Studies in human intimacy consistently show what many women respond to most is not complexity, but comfort combined with connection. A position, or more accurately, a situation that allows closeness, eye contact, and a sense of being fully seen and valued often creates a stronger response than anything purely physical. Think about that for a second. Eye contact, presence, attention. These are things that cost nothing, yet they are incredibly rare in a distracted, fast-paced world. And when a woman feels that she has your full attention, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally, it changes everything. Another factor that plays a major role is communication. And no, not just talking, but listening. Truly understanding what your partner likes, what makes her comfortable, and what helps her relax. Because tension is one of the biggest barriers to enjoyment. When the body is tense, it resists. When it feels safe, it opens. And this is where many men go wrong. They focus on performance instead of presence. They think it's about doing more, when in reality, it's often about slowing down. Giving time, allowing anticipation to build, creating an environment where your partner doesn't feel rushed or pressured. Confidence also plays a role, but not the loud, over-the-top kind. Quiet confidence. The kind that comes from being attentive, respectful, and in control of the moment without forcing it. That kind of energy is incredibly attractive and reassuring. There's also the importance of rhythm and awareness. Every person is different. What works for one may not work for another. The key is being observant, paying attention to subtle cues, body language, breathing, and reactions. These signals tell you far more than any universal rule ever could. And let's not ignore the role of emotional intimacy outside the bedroom. The way you speak, the way you treat your partner during the day, the respect you show, all of it carries over. Attraction doesn't start in one moment, it builds over time. When a woman feels appreciated, valued, and emotionally connected, her level of comfort increases. And with that comfort comes a greater ability to relax, trust, and fully experience the moment. So when people talk about a Fate 1 position, what they're often really pointing to, without realizing it, is a scenario that naturally includes closeness, communication, and connection. It's not magic, it's psychology and biology working together. If you take anything away from this, let it be this: real satisfaction isn't about chasing shortcuts or statistics. It's about understanding your partner as a whole person, her mind, her emotions, and her needs. Slow down. Be present, pay attention, build connection. Because when you get those things right, everything else starts to fall into place naturally. And here's something most people never talk about, but it quietly determines everything. The difference between an average experience and a deeply satisfying one often comes down to how a woman feels in her own body in that moment. Not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. Because if her mind is distracted, if she's overthinking, if she feels judged or rushed, her body simply won't respond the way you expect. That's not a flaw, that's biology. The female response system is far more context-driven than most men realize. It's not a switch you flip, it's a process you build. And the men who understand this, they don't rely on tricks, they rely on awareness. Now let's talk about what actually creates that sense of responsiveness. One of the most underestimated elements is pace. In a world where everything is fast, rushed, and instant, slowing down becomes incredibly powerful. When you slow down, you create space for anticipation. And anticipation is not just psychological, it has a physical effect. It heightens sensitivity, increases awareness, and makes every small moment feel more intense. But slowing down only works when it's intentional. It's not about hesitation, it's about control. And control, when combined with attentiveness, creates something even more important: trust. When a woman trusts that you are paying attention, that you are not just focused on your own outcome, but genuinely invested in her experience, her entire body language changes, her breathing shifts, her tension reduces, and she becomes more open, not just physically, but emotionally. This is why connection consistently outperforms technique. Another key factor is alignment, not just physical alignment, but emotional alignment. Being in sync with your partner, feeling the same rhythm, moving with awareness instead of assumption. You can think of it like a conversation without words. When both people are tuned into each other, the experience becomes fluid, natural, effortless. But when that alignment is missing, even the most recommended approaches feel mechanical. Now here's where confidence plays a subtle but critical role. Confidence isn't about dominance or control in the way it's often portrayed. Real confidence is calm, it's grounded, it's the ability to lead without pressure, to guide without forcing, and perhaps most importantly, it's the ability to adjust. Because no two individuals are exactly the same. What feels right in one moment might not feel the same in another. The ability to notice that and adapt without ego is what separates a good partner from a great one. Let's also address something that is rarely discussed openly: the impact of emotional buildup throughout the day. Attraction doesn't begin in a single moment, it accumulates. the way you communicate, the respect you show, the attention you give. Even small gestures, listening, acknowledging, appreciating, these all build a foundation. And that foundation directly affects how a woman experiences closeness later. If that emotional connection is strong, everything else becomes easier. If it's weak, no technique can fully compensate for it. There's also the element of feeling desired versus feeling pressured. These are two completely different experiences. When a woman feels desired, she feels valued, chosen, appreciated. But when she feels pressured, even subtly, her body can respond with resistance. And this is why patience is not just a virtue, it's a necessity. Patience creates space, space creates comfort, and comfort allows genuine response. Now think about the environments or situations where people naturally feel closer, where they're relaxed, where they feel safe, where they can be themselves without judgment. Those conditions matter far more than any single position ever could, because what people often label as the best is usually just the scenario where all these elements, connection, comfort, attention, trust, are naturally present. And when those elements come together, the experience becomes more than physical. It becomes immersive. Another powerful element is presence. Not being distracted, not thinking ahead, not rushing toward an outcome, but being fully engaged in the moment. Presence is rare. And because it's rare, it's incredibly impactful. When someone feels that you are fully there with them, not mentally somewhere else, it creates a level of intimacy that can't be faked. And that level of intimacy is often what people remember most. Let's also talk about feedback, not verbal instructions, but subtle cues. The human body communicates constantly. Through movement, breathing, tension, relaxation. The more you pay attention to these signals, the more you understand. And the more you understand, the more naturally things flow. This is why awareness always beats memorization. You don't need a script, you need sensitivity. And finally, let's bring it back to the idea of that so-called Fate 1 position. What makes any situation feel more effective isn't the position itself, it's what that position allows. Does it create closeness? Does it allow communication? Does it encourage eye contact? Does it make your partner feel secure, supported, and connected? If the answer is yes, then you're already moving in the right direction. Because satisfaction is not about complexity, it's about connection. And when you focus on connection, everything else aligns naturally. So instead of chasing numbers, percentages, or one-size-fits-all advice, focus on understanding, patience, and presence. Because in the end, the most powerful thing you can offer is not a technique, it's attention. And that is what truly changes everything.